Okay, are we unmuted?
Yes, we're good to go.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Community Services District Board of Directors to order. I would like to announce the meeting is being recorded. Let's do roll call.
Inspector Brandt,
Here.
Inspector Plott,
Here.
Inspector Freeman,
Here.
Inspector Hobart,
Here.
Seapost,
Here.
Director Topliff,
Here.
and Director Deshton.
Here.
Just in time. Love to see it. Okay, before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place, Peniscoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. We're going to move to the consent agenda. Do any directors have items they'd like to pull?
I'll move approval.
Okay, there's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to give that to Seapost. Made by Top, seconded by Seapost. I don't need to pull it, but I would like to highlight a really exciting development of the contract to refurbish the Welcome to Isla Vista sign. So I know Jenna's not here with us in person, but please share my own gratitude for that. I think that's going to be a really welcome beautification addition to that. Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on the motion? Seeing none. We'll go to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we're going to move to the public comment period. This is the time for any member of the public to speak on anything that is not on today's agenda. There'll be opportunities to speak on items that we have on the agenda later, but this is for a general public comment. Have any general public comment?
I think mine are all on the agenda. What is the agenda?
The agenda is proposed residential parking and transportation impacts report. That might be what you're here for. Okay. And anyone online, Jonathan?
We just had someone join. Let me ask them.
Okay.
And they missed the announcement. I don't think so.
Okay. Great. Then we are going to close public comment period and move to item 4.1, proposed residential parking and transportation impacts report.
All right. Let me get that on the screen. Oops. Our new guest is a reporter with the Nexus, not a public comment. Good to have her. Is that loading? There we go. We're on Chrome now. It's working better, so it's a little change. So we have this presentation today for the board to help guide the district's position on what we will discuss on parking and transportation impacts in regards to new housing projects. We're not proposing taking a position on the housing projects themselves, but more of what we would help propose to developers or the county as ways to make transportation and parking better as we have new development in Isla Vista. And it is something we have done in the past. We've met with developers. We met with one for 6625 Del Playa, last year, who wanted to hear from us ideas about how they can make parking better on their property. And the county has asked us for ideas as well of what do we think would be the things that could be done that would help mitigate the need for parking or make transportation better. So we've been asked this question a lot and had this conversation a lot. And then Spencer and I presented to the County Planning Commission just what our planning or parking study and mobility study said last week, and it was well received. And we do want to be able to keep pushing forward what's been recommended for our community. So this would be a way for us to package that. as this big discussion is going on. So it's timely. So background, there's 2 housing projects right now being reviewed by the County Planning Commission, but there's many more in the pipeline. We are co-hosting a town hall next Friday with Ivy Record Parks and Second District on the housing projects, just to inform the community about them. And we are going to have an opportunity to, propose strategies that could help mitigate parking and transportation impacts. People are listening to us right now, so we want to be able to use our voice. This is just an overview of the different projects being proposed and the street parking congestion near them on the same block face. So they are spread all over Isla Vista. And then there are some other projects being in the pipeline in Isla Vista that aren't builder's remedy projects. So those are state mandated projects essentially that are going to happen pretty much regardless because of state law. And then there's also these projects, which are just in the mix that we know about. Like I said, that Del Playa project was one that's not a builder's remedy, but it's just being done. And we met with the developer back in August to give them like the idea to have a couple zip cars on their property so they can mitigate the parking issue since they were removing parking. So yeah, this is just the state law that that's the county is working with as these projects go forward. It streamlines things and makes limited I guess a sort of decision for the county to make. They pretty much have to approve it. And we've been, as you all know, been pushing for a parking compliance program. That's been our #1 recommendation. And we're looking for different funding sources. There is the UCSB settlement funds that the county got, 3.7 million we've asked for from there. We've also looked at the in-loop parking fee program that was paid into 12 to 14 years ago by the developments in the loop, like the Loop and the Icon Gardens and Plaza Lofts, who paid into the redevelopment agency $450,000 that's sitting there for parking improvements in Isla Vista. And we also know that the wave is the #1 thing a lot of people are excited about, and what they told us in their survey would get them to reduce their reliance on their car. So we know that that's something coming that needs funding beyond the first year. And so we've put together some ideas of what developers can do to be, good neighbors, essentially, as they start their relationship in Isla Vista, building something new. So that could be helping our parking compliance program get started, or help fund it, help get the sidewalk infrastructure near their projects to connect to transit stops, which is an issue that we've identified, help get the wave going so that residents don't need a car if they end up living at that development. They can rely on the wave and other means. Providing bus or Amtrak vouchers, like for regional buses or for the train, so that people can head out of town with and have an incentive to head out of town at no cost. They can host car sharing, like zip cars in their parking lot. We really believe that could be a huge improvement to the status quo. UCSB does that essentially with their residence halls, and so it would be applying that model that works in Isla Vista. And building bike parking. One of the top things we heard in our mobility plan is that there's no bike parking or not enough bike parking in the private residential areas of Ivy. And this one is probably not possible, but it's been brought up of having a lease clause that prohibits car ownership, but it's maybe not doable. And marketing the projects to tenants as car-free, which is maybe something we can help with, because we are developing education materials about living car-free and not needing a car here in Isla Vista. But that's something IVCSD is thinking about too. So yeah, we would want to get direction from the board to support these strategies, which are derived from our parking and mobility plans. as a list of things that we will go, myself and the board president would go to work with the county planning commission and the board of supervisors, or even to developers to present them as actions supported by the IVCSD. And to take any other actions on this topic if deemed necessary.
Okay, thank you for that presentation, Jonathan. Any questions from the board?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, this might be a dumb question, but include these clauses, like you said that probably isn't possible, but
It's
doesn't that already exist? Like, oh, you either have to like pay for your parking spot or like each unit only has like so many parking spots.
I think the idea is to prohibit people from having a car on the public
Okay.
street, but yes,
Yeah.
it's been brought up at the county planning commission meetings, so it is one of those ideas in the mix, but maybe can be doable.
Yeah.
And I know I shouldn't interrupt, but you can just forget about all of this. If there's no mandatory enforcement and prohibition, like you said, the kids go bring their cars.
Yeah,
If you
I
don't
appreciate
tell
your
them
thoughts.
they can't,
Have to
they
keep
will.
order for the meeting,
I
so
know,
but we will have public comment opening very soon.
I
We
know.
appreciate your perspective.
but I'm not gonna hang around when I know it's worthless if there's no enforcement and prohibition about bringing cars.
Code of public
Lived here
comment.
too long.
Was that the end of your question, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions for staff, Director Deschler?
I have a question I don't think you can answer. So do you happen to know the cost of the wave on an annual basis?
I'm trying to get that answer,
Okay.
so it's an answer I want to have, but
Yeah.
we'll get sued.
Okay, cool.
So I thought about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions from the board? You can go back to the, well, actually, I'll save that. 'Cause I answered that. Okay.
Actually, you could-
Go ahead, Director.
What meeting of ours, if anyone remembers, did we have the presentation that from with the different like the maps that had all of the heat coatings of like, or like not this, the projects from the county that were being put into place. There was like two sets of presentations, one after another one. It was a controversial meeting. I went on a rant.
Was the, okay.
Which one was that? That's really tough.
Was it before COVID or after?
Maybe
Was it
think
the
of
one
a
before?
No,
recent-
it was like within the last 4 meetings.
Yeah,
February.
it was like 12 or
Well,
14.
Okay. February 11th. Okay. Seeing no other questions at this time, I'll open up public comment. Any members of the public would like to speak, give me a little wave, and I'll call on you. I think you're first, Ms. Brown.
Well, I'm not real interested anymore. 'Cause I think with the new developments and the limited parking, no parking, the only way you're gonna be able to make sure the kids don't bring cars is to put it in the lease. I don't know why a property owner can't do that and say you may not bring a car. We don't have enough parking. We have the waive. We're gonna do this. We're giving you vouchers, so don't bring your car. But you guys, everybody's too permissive. I've never seen so many cars. I've never seen so much congestion in all my decades of living here. I've never seen the cars parked in the red zones like has been brought up, before, where it's dangerous to look out into the street and try to get your car out there. And is compounded now with all the delivery trucks delivering packages to so many people. I'm one of them too. But they have to double park for Marburg, a dear and loyal friend. They have such a time getting their big trucks through town. And I've even started to see the buses on Abrego, which is our street, having to just stop because they can't navigate either the delivery trucks or too many cars. They'll honk. They'll probably get behind on schedule. It is absolutely crazy. And I don't know if any of your good suggestions, and they're good, are going to do any good. I did write a letter to Peggy. Probably haven't had time to see it. Decades ago, we tried to get the university because their students are responsible for the majority of the cars out here. And City College got in the mix. We tried to get them interested in notifying the parents and the students coming to campus. Here are all the reasons we do not think it's a good idea. They can't mandate the kids not bring a car to university. But they can say, here's the reality. Here's what's gonna happen, the struggle, the congestion. They will be cited, they can be towed. They don't need cars. You know, they're 10 minutes away from the university. There's all different ways of transportation. We finally did that when we bought our building decades ago, because we didn't know anything. And the kids would park in front of the building behind each other where the Marburg couldn't get in and out because they all wanted to bring a car. And we only had 6 units. And so we had to get tough. And we had to say, there is only 1 parking place per unit because about 2 kids would be in each. You both don't need to bring a car. You can either choose to fight and struggle out on the street. It will be vandalized, which was happening then. But you are not to come in with any other car. We really think you should share a car. We contacted the parents and said they don't need a car. Here's the situation. And we haven't had any trouble since. They usually put 1 or so would keep it at home, but if they both wanted it, they would take turns parking out on the street. But we just simply had to get tough and say, no, you can't be in here. You can't bring your car. And I think something like that's gonna have to happen. And again, I've been bringing this up for years. And I don't hear any interest in it, but we've watched through the years as there's more and more cars. More and more property owners are allowing the students to park their cars in the front yard, or they're graveling the front yard, turning it into a parking lot, or taking half of it away and allowing the cars. Until you get the number of cars down, nothing good is going to come with any of this. I don't see a solution. And that means getting tough and allowing property owners to say, you know, if you're going to be in this new development and we don't have enough parking and we've got the waive and we've got the vouchers, then you may not bring a car to Isla Vista. I don't see anything wrong with that. We don't have troubles anymore. I think that's it. Oh, and the only other thing, trying to get this thing delayed, is that I think a big emphasis should be on no development until the parking study is concluded, which I think it is. Here are the conclusions we're going to do. Here's the solutions to deal with cars, parking, safety, and you may not build anything until that is resolved. But I don't see that happening either. So I just don't see any future. And all the decades we've lived here, I've never seen Isla Vista's future so in jeopardy. With the different buildings, the 3 stories, the no parking, not getting tough on cars. They look ugly. The development, the pictures that Peggy sent out, they're just ugly buildings. The state or whoever has been given license to the developers, do what you want. We just want to pack in people. We want to pack in the kids. We don't need parking anymore. You can go 3 stories, 4 stories, whatever it's going to be. And it doesn't even have to go through architectural review to look decent for our community. I really think unless you guys put up the fight of the century, we don't stand a good chance in IB anymore, Peggy. You agree?
I'm gonna fight.
I know you're gonna fight, but we want the CSD to fight too. you guys haven't been around long enough as some of us old timers, and we know what's at stake unless you fight like Peggy. And that's it.
Thank you very much for. Peggy, go ahead.
Right. Two parts to this. First part, kind of the general what's going on. 27 places, 9 big ones, 3 single-family residences with attached ADUs, 9 new ADUs, and at least 6 ADUs already been built. All of this having to do with all the new state laws. The 330, the builder's remedy, the half-mile parking stuff. So we're looking at 420 new bedrooms with only 120 parking spaces. We're looking at a huge increase of cars because students do bring cars. They need to drive downtown to get to work. The buses don't run at 11 o'clock or early in the morning. So what to do with this is really tricky. Just the amount of cars that I've extrapolated after the Public Works, the 100 spaces from Public Works, and then the 170 from the daylight laws, we're going to be down to 2,500 parking spaces in Isla Vista. This group of developments right here is bringing in possibly 460 cars. It's 25%. We're talking a 25% increase of cars coming in. But your guys' parking study is brilliant. It was done really well, and there's tons of information, and there's tons of good ideas. So starting with enforcement, because that will make it safer right off the bat, is get the cars out of the red zones, off the sidewalks, away from the fire hydrants, off the corners, blocking. Yeah, that right there will make a difference. And what to do about this, though? This is tricky. These are all great ideas. And I think every single one of them should be implemented. But it's a conversation with the county on how do you get the developer fees, because there are developer fees that come with these buildings. How do you get those things going this direction? I'm not sure, but it's something that I think you folks should try, and I think you should suggest. And I listened to your presentation. I watched it when you guys went to the Planning Commission. It was really good, and they're receptive. It's just, again, where are the teeth? In the end, it's going to come down to coastal access and what is going to be a health and safety issue out here. I'm not entirely sure what the Planning Commission is going to do tomorrow, but if they do agree with the findings that staff has, and they do say yes to this developer, I will be appealing. And that will be an interesting journey for me, but it's a chink in the armor. And I've had some help with the land use planner, so I'm hopeful. I'm not completely unhopeful in this. And I think at that point, what needs to happen is everyone needs to start asking the county for a cumulative impact report on what this is going to do. And I don't know of how to slow all these other ones down. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, some of them are okay. And I know we need housing, and I know ADUs are a nice way to go, but these ADUs are like 3 bedrooms and 2 stories. So basically they're little mini houses. They're not granny flats. They're little mini houses, and they're having a huge impact on the neighbors in the West End. I mean, there's houses down there where there's 12 people living in there already, just 2 parking spaces, and now they're going to bring in at least 6 more people. It's just going to get more dangerous. So there has to be this balance of, the state is really making it hard on the county, but you've got to find this balance of how do we control this growth, and how do we get the developers to agree to this? How do we leave our coastal access open? Your guys' plan, if we ever do a parking permit program, which I think is the only answer, to set up designated coastal access parking on Camino Mallorca, on that dirt spot, and have it be limited hours will make a huge difference, at least for coastal access. And the Coastal Commission nixed the plan, I forget how many years ago, when we tried to do the parking plan before, they nixed it because of that. So if you start off right off the bat going, here's our designated parking, and this is our plan, and we're gonna come out of this safer. We are. But I understand it's gotta be incremental. And we start with the enforcement, and then we see what that looks like. And then after the enforcement, we have more conversations with the county and the university about, listen, it's not safe. And every day is getting a little bit worse. So again, I'm hopeful. I appreciate you guys looking at this and talking about this and presenting to the county and the planning commission there. And yeah, let's keep at it. And I'm here. If you need me.
Nadine, could I ask you one question?
We'll do it out, we'll do it out. Oh,
Just said I gotta go.
yeah. Spencer, I don't know if we want the back.
If it's quick, you
I
can
don't
do
know.
Real
it.
quick,
Yeah.
how is the fight going to the state? I mean, that's the bottom line.
So
You guys need to fight. the
yeah, so
state.
that's,
and
yeah,
the
we've
rules.
got to talk to, well, we've got a town hall coming up. And we will be talking to our representatives from the state legislature and the Senate, and yeah. It's worth, and if we can demonstrate what is happening out here, and there's gonna be a lot of photographs at that meeting tomorrow, and it's gonna be obvious. We just need to demonstrate this is the impact that these laws, well-intentioned, are having huge consequences for communities. So there we are. I don't want to take up any more time. I've gone over my 3 minutes, but thanks, guys.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you for the comment. Okay, I see a hand over here from Esteban. Would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, parking is important, so I'm glad they came out to talk about parking. One concern I have that, this, water task force has, they also have an interest in air quality, especially, point sources that are near parks. So, I'll look more into it, but I just wanted to throw that out there that there might be more coming regarding that issue. And thanks again for helping the co-op. And also, I forgot to mention, I was on the committee for getting the warming shelters here in IVCSD. Prior to the existence of the CSD, there were a number of warming shelters in the winters. And I know there was tent city for the pandemic, but this winter it didn't happen. But funding was secured, and it looks like it's going to happen for the fall. So I know Maya has been working really hard on that. So thanks, Maya, for all of your help. And Deltopia is coming up, and I'm trying to get a permit to do something for the weekend task force. Maybe having a table and doing smoothies and serving bowls. I just thought I'd inform you about those activities. And saving the best for last, I brought a buddy with me. His name is Ricardo, and I will close my time, and if he's interested in saying anything, he's next or whoever is next. Thank you.
Yeah, so my concerns regarding the parking too is gotten crazy for me. It's been probably maybe a couple months, maybe to a year, where I'm also trying to get out of where I am, and all like the red spaces or fire hydrant areas are all occupied, and it's really hard for me just to get out. Maybe probably 2 weeks ago, I almost had an accident with someone, and yeah, even where I'm looking at, I can't even look to get out safely. And I had to, even if I peek out, I'm even at risk of getting into an accident, which is, unintentional. But yeah, just trying to speak on that part.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Yeah.
Any other public comments? Anything online?
Why is there no enforcement of cars parked illegally in the red zones?
It's a great question, and it's one that we're trying to get the answer to as well. So
You call the CHP, you call law enforcement, and what do they say?
I think a
Do
lot
they
of
just
us.
say, we don't have the people, we don't care, what's up?
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. I'm gonna close public comment now, and we're gonna bring it back to the board. Any comments on presentation or anything in public comment we want to address?
I'll
Director,
just-
so
Yeah.
he got his hand in first, so I'm gonna let him
No,
go.
I know he did.
I don't
I know he
count
did.
here, no. One thing I think is interesting, when we look at the work the county has been deciding to do, which the district has had some complaints about the priorities that they've had. It's almost like they're actively avoided, of course, I'm not saying that they did. I'm just saying it's just such a coincidence that it's almost like it actively avoids providing anything that would have helped this project going in. And I think it's actually, in some sense, an opportunity for us in this discussion, in the sense that when this project goes in, the places that are going to be maximally impacted by this project are going to be places that are going to continue to be the worst, least currently mitigated, least addressed areas of Isla Vista. And therefore, it should be much easier for us to demonstrate that there is going to be an objectively explainable harm that will come from this project going to that location, for purposes of our being able to then ask for example, funding for sidewalk infrastructure as a mitigating measure from the developers from this. And so when I looked at, and of course, casually looking at the laws written as I'm lawyer or anything, but it seemed like while there wasn't a lot of opportunity to just kind of arbitrarily deny things, there was a lot of opportunity to not just negotiate, but actually kind of demand mitigations. That if there is this objective harm, that it's not just like, oh, maybe they're willing to, provide developer fees towards something, but it's like, no, you actually have to mitigate this impact until the objective harm would not be a harm. And so again, I feel like there's this almost coincidentally convenient that almost in retrospect that the county is doing all this work everywhere else, because we can get nothing, even if we can't do anything about the project happening, maybe we can get the project to fund money to fix the infrastructure in this area of Isla Vista. So
Thank you for those comments. Director Deschler, thank you.
Yes, I wanted just to make a comment that this is very much the issue with parking in Isla Vista involves numerous actors, and all these entities need to be working together in good faith. And I would say to the public that to the extent that you are struggling with enforcement, struggling with not having parking remedies, that this is something really to bring to the Board of Supervisors, and specifically to Supervisor Capps, because the IVCSD can only do so much. It only has so much authority. The IVCSD, in partnership with the university and the county, has developed an amazing and funded an amazing parking plan. But it is really needs the support, the financial support of the county. And there are funds at the county that are designated for Isla Vista parking issues. And to the extent that people in the community care about and are having struggles with parking, emails Supervisor Capps and let them know this is a priority for you, because it's a priority for this board, which is why this is on the agenda today. So I wanted to say that, and I also wanted to say that the university has a policy in place that prohibits first-year students who live within a 2-mile radius of getting parking permits. That's great, right? But it doesn't prevent students from parking in Isla Vista. And if you don't have enforcement, as been mentioned, it doesn't matter what type of restrictions we have on campus. And so it's really incumbent upon the county to fulfill its responsibility to Isla Vista and fund parking enforcement. And IVCSD can help, but the county needs to do its part. So I encourage the public to really communicate that.
Thank you, Director Deschler. Any other comments from the board?
Kind of. So you said, I'm reading your letter to the planning commission, and so the proposed project adds 48 bedrooms for only 24 on-site parking spaces, far below the 97 spaces required by the county's Article 3 coastal zoning ordinance. How do you build something out of the ordinance?
So they're utilizing a state law called AB 2097, which requires or allows them to build the project with 0 parking spaces.
Okay.
And that is because they're within a half mile of a transit stop.
Mhm.
And that transit stop is the El Colegio transit stop. If there's a frequent enough service, then that is the law that.
Okay. And then, like, how does like the university play a role in this? Like, is there any way we could like ask the university to open up, like, because like after your first year, if you're not a resident, you can't park on university like housing things, specifically like Lot 22, which is like the main one by camp or by Isla Vista. Is there a way we could like ask for a certain designated amount of parking spots for Ivy? Or is like that something they would be interested like?
I'm looking at you, Jonathan, and can you also
Yeah.
help us? I'm going to tack one on that. Help us get clarity on what is the university policy for parking.
There's a lot of different policies involved in it. There is a policy that there's different kind of passes you can buy UCSB. There's 3 main ones. There's A and B, which are faculty and staff, and there's C, which is student commuter. But to get the student commuter pass, you have to live over 2 miles away from campus. There are a couple other passes that people can buy. They're smaller, like passes. There's not a huge supply of them. And then if you live in the housing complexes, like you said, there are parking lots specific to housing, UCSB housing, that the residents of those buildings get to buy, but people who don't live there have access to. So that is, but then people who live in Isla Vista can buy a night and weekend parking pass, but that starts at 5 p.m. and ends at 7:30. So it is a little hard to work with that. Just for the numbers, so like the figures, UCSB has 10,000 parking spots, but 6,000 of them are for faculty and staff. And so there are 4,000 spots that are like student, or like, but almost all of those aren't the housing ones. So that is, I would say, let me count it really quick for you. Yeah, 3,000 of them are for UCSB housing. So we don't know the exact occupancy percentages of those, but we did in the parking study get utilization rates of each parking lot at UCSB work, because the UCSB parking was part of the steering committee, so provided all of that information. We know that it's around 50% maybe utilized. So there's 1,900 used, 1,900 maybe not used all the time, but we don't, that's when we did the point in time count. We don't know what exactly that means. Maybe people were just gone during the day. So we don't know that hard exact number.
And then like, do we know with the new like dorms being built, if they're also tacking on parking to that?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think there's parking.
I don't think there's parking.
Yeah,
I
I
think
haven't
the idea is
heard
for San Benito and the East
Yeah.
Campus, it's utilizing existing parking.
Yeah.
And the other thing with the UCSB point in time count, my recollection is there was more liberal remote work at that time. And
It
so
was
that might have
2023,
factored into the vacancy rates. When I talked to the parking director, they indicate to me that there aren't that many, there's not that much vacancy for parking, because it's faculty, staff, housing, and visitors. So when you add all those together, that there's not a significant amount, but I think it's worth a question, and it's a good question.
We can get updated numbers.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be, that's part of our whole parking plan, is to update the numbers regularly now that we have the, structure.
Yeah.
Director Freeman.
I think one of the complexities in this, almost like to continually, even within like each of our individual arguments, warring thoughts that keep coming up, are these ideas of permitting parking and having more parking. This is something that I've talked about on various occasions of various meetings I've gone to, trying to talk to people. Parking permit programs are like, we want more parking. What it is we want parking. But within this discussion here, we've had people talking about parking permit programs, the importance of that, and the enforcement in order to make certain that like illegal parking spots are removed from utilization of parking spots. And on the other side, we've also been talking about, shouldn't the university provide more parking? We should.
No.
Yeah, I'm actually on
No,
your
just
side of this.
kidding.
Yeah, no, I'm on your side. So the, but we can kind of like look at this in some sense, like abstractly, as if you increase the cost of parking, you'll have fewer people bringing cars here. If you decrease the cost of parking, you'll have more people bringing cars here. Just a very simple, like capitalism level. I mean, if there was no cost at all for anyone to bring as many cars they want here, and cost is not just in the form of like the amount of money you have to pay to have the spots, but also the amount of time you spend finding a free spot and converting that into, the time value of your money, or say the time value of your time. You'd have extremely large number of cars being brought here, right? And so we stare then at transportation level. We keep staring at the problem of the safety of all of our streets and the number of cars that are moving through intersections. So we're trying to figure out how to make it so that like the speed of cars is slower, and we're trying to figure out how to make it so that the visibility is greater, and we're trying to figure out, in some cases very directly, not us, but like the GLEDA and the university and the county negotiating over particular intersections and trying to limit the number of cars that are going through them, and billing as another form of capitalistic system on this, like billing the university for the number of cars that are going through there. And it's just like, and if we want there to be fewer cars that are kind of clogging all of the infrastructure in Isla Vista, we need to not ask the university for more parking. We need to get in a compliance program, which we're all here. That's why we're all constantly fighting for the compliance program, at least. And we need a compliance program, and then we need to potentially have a permit program, which will then make it so there's like a reasonable, like slightly increase the cost of parking in order to like push down the way that people are trying to like constantly fight for parking. But like I think that like we need to keep thinking about the perspective of like, if we kind of shift back and forth between different argument frames of like, let's try to make it easier for people to park and have more parking spots and everything, and it's going to bring more cars. But at the same time, we're like, we're going to have fewer cars, and so let's increase enforcement and increase permit costs and figure out how to like provide it. Well, that's in order to get fewer cars. And so I think we need to almost take a step back, decide what is it we're trying to accomplish. I'm on the side of, let's try to limit the number of cars that are coming in here for numerous reasons. I like a lot of the policies the university's put in place over the years. I like the fact that they limit the number of parking permits they provide to people. I like the fact that they sometimes have a lot of parking that they're not utilizing because it's used for like during rain events and various things, like it just smooths everything out in certain like immediate circumstances. I think that a lot of people at the university are actually spending a lot of time thinking through these. I've over the years spent time talking to people at the university who've been working on these policies that they have. I just want to defend a little bit the university here on this. But at the same time, I also think that we should be trying to figure out how to get enforcement, permitting, and figure out how to increase the safety of our streets. And I think that from the perspective of this conversation we have here, which is that we're trying to figure out with the scope of this development that's going in, that if we can concentrate on what are our objective harms that we can find, I think that's the place where the law is going to give the Planning Commission the most power to actually step in and do something in this matter. Because I mean, I'm kind of under the impression that we can demonstrate that there is an incredibly, ridiculously, infinitely horrible parking problem here, and the county won't be able to actually do anything about that because of the builder's remedy. But maybe I'm wrong on that. But there's a lot of those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Director Freeman. I think that brings us back to what we're looking at today in a really good way. I don't think anyone disputes there are going to be major impacts to these projects, and for the one that's going through the process is going to be at the Planning Commission tomorrow. I have personally lived in a very similar type of project when I was a student, where we were in a bedroom with 4 total people, and this is kind of the standard management practice of some companies in Isla Vista, including the company that is behind this project. And so it's conceivable to look at that and say that there's going to be as many as 150 more cars in the area just from this one particular project, because there are not adequate parking spaces included in the project. And at the same time, I agree that our goal, the only way that we're going to get there is by discouraging people from bringing their cars, encouraging people to see that they can live here car free, they can use the bus, they can use the wave when the wave opens. And the way to do that is through, I think, the list that we had on screen earlier. I want to add one more thing to that list, which is an idea that Jonathan and I had someone speak with us about recently, which was working with UCSB to help educate parents of incoming students about the differences in cost of a zip car membership and potentially like car insurance on a vehicle that they're sending their student with, because the zip car is going to be cheaper. And that might help lead to greater utilization of services like that I feel like have a lot of potential, but have just been underutilized for whatever reason, one reason or another. So I think the list is, it's good. I keep looking over here expecting.
Yeah, I can pull it back up.
That will help jog my memory a little bit. But I think it is important that what Director Dessler said, that the most important thing on the list is the parking compliance program, getting it started. And we, as a board, have committed $300,000 towards that, which is what we expect to be a little over half of the cost to get the program off the ground. But we're not made of money, and we need to have partnership with our partners to be able to make that program a reality. When we're talking about a period of time where there is going to be really heavy enforcement, but with warnings to blanket the community and let people know that this is coming, that's not generating any of the revenue that would help support the program. So there needs to be this cushion there at the beginning that will also help pay for equipment, for some of the startup staffing costs. And that has been kind of the thing that we've struggled with. And so I do see this being on the list as a really important thing, because I could see a project applicant saying, I can figure out a way to help support that program because of the impact that I'm causing in the community. Last thing I'll say, even though everyone is thinking about the project that's getting heard tomorrow, is what you said, Peggy, which is that there's a long list. There's a lot of other projects on there that are coming forward with, I think there's 3 of them. There are 28 units and 0 parking spaces. So making full use of that law that allows them to get around it. So this situation is going to continue to get more and more challenging. And I'm glad, I hope that this helps us get ahead of it by putting a flag down of where the community services district is at, of what we want to see in these projects as they come forward.
I think that it's also important to think about the independence factor of having a car. I think that a lot of people bring their cars up here because they don't want to rely on a roommate to be able to get groceries or go to the store. And maybe they also don't want to coordinate using the bus system. I mean, I know a lot of people who openly say like, oh, I only use my car for groceries, or like, oh, I should use my car more, like it just sits there. Or they use it because they want to be able to go home after finals whenever they feel like it, versus when somebody else they know who lives in their area is done with finals. Things like that. I think that those are important things to consider, because I think that while a lot of us feel like the bus system is accessible and it, you can hop on the bus and go to Target or wherever you might need to go, like some people don't feel that way, and it's a really big reason that they have cars. And it's kind of like with the co-op, like people not feeling like they have the resources to shop locally. Like people don't think that they can do all their grocery shopping at the co-op. There's not like a Target in IB, not saying that there necessarily should be, but other schools have those things. At UCSD, they have a Target on campus that students can go to. And I think that lack of like very easy, accessible like shopping is a really big reason. And I think that, maybe that's something that UCSB should be addressing in their new housing projects, instead of just building all this new housing and not considering parking. They should also be considering, can we put like a little market, kind of like how they have with Tenaya? Like there should be places in IB that are easy for people to go to where they can get the things they need for affordable prices. And I think that until that happens, and until that's a part of the culture here to shop at a place like the co-op, there's always gonna be a problem with parking because people don't wanna use the bus. And they can't use the bus to get to places like Trader Joe's that lots of college students like to go to. So I think that until that's addressed, it's gonna continue to be a battle.
Dr. Stevens.
I also think that there's a very good chunk of students at the school, like most of the people that I've talked to about like having a car on campus just don't care about like how many people have cars and like the impact about it. Like I would agree, I would think that most students when seeing this proposal would just like not care and be like, oh, like that's someone else's problem, not mine. Like most of my friends rarely ever use their car, but when they do use it, it's for going home, which they maybe do once or twice a quarter and then at the beginning and end. And like going to get groceries once a week. And most of the time people who do go get groceries are doing it with their friends anyway. So it's like, I don't know how we like create a culture of just not like needing a car, but I think it's gonna take a very, very long time to get there and like involve mass like movement and belief, I guess.
I really liked what you just said about the grocery stores, and I'm like, I have no idea, and obviously that's like a very long-term thing, and I have no idea how that would work, but like, is there like, what is the process for like porting like a grocery store to set up shop in IB? Like, is that something that's even doable? Like, obviously that would be a very long-term thing, but because that would, I think that would in itself solve so many issues. Because the problem with like IB co-op, like the reality is that like it is just expensive. Like it is more expensive than other options like Trader Joe's. And even if it's not that expensive by that much, like students are still going to prefer Trader Joe's to IB co-op just because it's like a simple calculus.
People are attached to name brand.
And
I
that
also
too,
would
yeah.
say that I don't think that it's necessarily like we need to try to bring Albertsons or Sprouts to IV. I think that it could also mean the university or other entities investing in what we already have here. Like if they were to help the IV Food Co-op expand to actually have like things that like produce and like the meats and stuff like that, because a lot of people don't shop there because they can't get all of their groceries there. And part of the struggle with that is because the co-op is a cooperative and they don't have the necessary space or money to do that. And I think that that's something that personally I think is partly the responsibility of the university, knowing that, 60% of their students live in IB to invest in. But I think that it's good to invest in the local businesses that are here. I don't want to push for Target and Trader Joe's to have a location in IV because I think that's something that makes IV what it is all the local businesses, but it is a concern. And I think that, it just comes down to people will have their car sit there for a month as long as it means they can go to In-N-Out when they want, or they can go home the minute their finals are done instead of waiting until Saturday when their friend from home is like also done. Like it really comes down to things like that. Like people will literally bring their car up just so they can bring it back home with them. And I don't really know necessarily how we would fix that, like in the parking proposal.
So before we continue, I like what I've heard here because I think what I'm hearing is adding in a bullet point on the proposed strategies about investing in local services, local groceries, local retail / grocery.
Yeah, I mean, even like the idea of maybe offering like a financial incentive to people that choose to book with Amtrak to go home. Like, oh, you can apply to get like a little stipend to pay for your Amtrak ticket because you're not bringing your car up here just so you can come home with it. Like there's people that, might benefit from that maybe can't afford to have their car up here and have to pay the cost of using the train and things like that. Like if you create these like incentives around staying local, not bringing a car, using the train to go home or stuff like that, I think that could help somewhat because a lot of people like bring their car up because their parents are already paying for it. So why would they take the train if they can just have it sit here for a few months and then bring it back home?
I like that too. And is that covered under
The vouchers,
the vouchers?
Yeah.
Provide bus and Amtrak vouchers at cost to all tenants. I think that that's an important part as well. I cut you off over there.
Well, okay, I just like, how has underground parking ever been proposed in all this stuff?
rejected by the voters.
Really?
It's supposed to be under here.
Oh, actually?
Yeah.
Why was it, were there reasons for why people didn't like it?
Environmental issues, there's water under here.
Oh, yeah.
The high water table, I know Jenna's not here, but I know that that's a factor in why there's the issue with the, I won't call it flooding, but the pooling of water near Greek Park.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's an underground parking structure that pumps water out and into the street.
Yeah. Wait, what does that connect to?
Just the
It's,
gutter, the sewage
Oh,
system,
okay.
yeah. But it gets backed up for kind of our neighbors
Yeah.
at the park district struggle with that. That's the part. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to address a couple of things that my colleague said. First of all, in the new San Benito housing project, there is going to be a small store similar to Tenaya. When the Ocean Road project was being proposed, there was discussion about putting some type of food grocery store. And many folks in Isla Vista were opposed to it because they didn't want there to be competition with IV Food Club. And second, I just wanted to say, I think you mentioned that 60% of students live in Isla Vista. And that's not correct. Not at all, not close. There's about 10,000 students that live in Isla Vista. I have to get you the numbers.
So that's like 50%.
Less than 50% if there's 25,000 students. Yeah.
Okay, I think I saw a hand over here too.
I appreciate this interesting discussion, and it does seem like we do want to discourage cars from being in Isla Vista. And I know that if you have no place to park, it's a big discouragement from having a car. And so basically we have no place to park, and to the extent that we can do parking enforcement, that will become increasingly clear to people that this is not a place to park. So I do think that one of our major strategies would be to see if we can't get some kind of mitigation fees charged to these developers. We may not be able to stop them, but it seems like we have a lot of great data to show just that there's no place to park. And if they're gonna have tenants who have cars, it's gonna be costly to the community.
Thank you for that. Any other?
And we need the
comments?
mitigation fees to go to IVCSD, not
Be
county.
nice.
Oh, yeah, that too. Absolutely.
I think that this has been a good discussion. I guess we're not gonna update the slide on the fly, but I do
I have
want to
comments
support.
on the side.
Oh, you've got comments on the side. Okay, I just can't read them because I have to squint too much. But,
Yeah, it's okay.
so we do have some comments on additional full service business
okay.
investment.
Full service business, zip card, parent education, and then the delivery zone or loading zone. And for like the garbage trucks and Amazon trucks and such, which is something the county brought up too. So like Google Chrome blew up.
I wanted, if you can pull the list back up, because I
Yeah,
just
I'm
want-
trying.
I know that you're
Yeah.
before I go to my colleagues, I just want to emphasize, I think that what makes this list have strength to me is that it is a mix of carrots and sticks. I think it was you who alluded to this director plot, but we're not going to get there just with one or the other. I think that we need to have both. We need to be making it easier for that culture change to take place by giving people the right options, making it affordable, making it accessible. And we also need to address non-compliance, especially when people are struggling with having their driveways blocked when, and they're just stuck at their house because there's someone parked in the driveway. Like that is a major challenge. So I like that we've had a holistic discussion about this that also applies not just to private developers, but also to the UCSB projects, which go through their own separate review in a much different way. But hopefully there's something that future ones can learn from these strategies as well. Director Tushler.
I wanted, is it proposed strategies or recommended actions? I was thinking it might be helpful to expand the number of people, expand the people that can speak to the board or the planning commission to the vice president, as well as if we have an ad hoc committee on parking to just enable a number of voices to represent the IVCSD before various governing boards.
Great. Director Freeman.
That's right. I'm not certain exactly the thought you were having there, but I mean, as far as I understand, we are all allowed to go to planning commission and speak at it. It's
just who represents.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting.
The interesting note about the zip cars is that, like, right now, all the zip cars that are in the area are all utilized. And so in some sense, like, zip car is being utilized quite well. It's just that there are very few cars here, and there are fewer cars here than there were a number of years ago. And it was when when COVID happened, people stopped using the shared cars for various reasons. And then when the price of cars went up, Zipcar sold a lot of cars because they were essentially like an investment in cars. And so you can sell cars when cars were expensive and buy when they're cheap. And they never bothered to put many cars back here. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point and what makes that so challenging is that not everything is in our control or the county's control on that program. I will share that with one of those two projects that got heard by the planning commission last week, the applicant committed to looking into designating one of their parking spaces as a Zipcar parking space. So it seems like a lot that this may be something that is being identified as like a low hanging fruit type of thing.
I think the Zipcar sign is still on the county street over there. And
It's great parking for the bagel place.
They're just yeah, it's true. There are just no Zipcars there. I don't think it's because the county has decided that they don't want that anymore. In fact, last time I think we asked the county about Zipcar, they were like, yeah, we asked them for more cars. They just don't do it anymore. So
maybe that's a strategy that we lobby Zipcar.
We try to get in more there, yeah, or another company.
Yeah.
I'm sure this has been like echoed so many times, but like I think the number one thing you can do to like stop people from having cars is increased enforcement. Like fear does a lot. How is there ways that, like, I'm sure it's been tried 1,000 times, but is there ways you can like incentivize the police? Like, is it California Highway Patrol the only people that can give out tickets, or is it like who's in charge of that?
We're hoping that we can do it, but that's because that's kind of the whole crux of the parking study. But
yeah,
we can't get there without the buy-in from
Without some
partners.
Yeah,
Which is the big challenge. My understanding, and I'm going to look to the audience too, because maybe you've called CHP more recently than I have, but it's really dependent on the availability of a CHP officer, and this is not their primary duty. Their primary duty is enforcing vehicle traffic infractions on highways.
yeah.
But they will come here and do some limited parking enforcement. It might take a while.
But is it usually like dependent on someone calling and complaining?
It's totally complaint based. Yeah. Oh, you got a hand over there. Have you had experience with that recently?
May I speak?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, what I was gonna bring up, which is on topic here, is now when you talk about that, the CSD wants to do this, are you talking about like having like maybe like a little compliance force that goes out? Okay, good, because I thought there might be a conflict with the general priority of not only policing, and if this does get enforced, it would increase the presence of police and people will start to say, hey, so if you're taking the route where you're doing it and providing that sort of side little infrastructure to do it, great, that's great, so that it doesn't create that conflict.
Thank you for that comment. as well.
May I
Oh.
speak to the topic?
May I say one more thing?
So one more thing.
Okay, then I'll be good, but, you're definitely on the right track about attracting, more retail. I, right off the top of my head, a print shop, maybe another laundromat, so thank you, you're definitely on the right track.
Thank you very much as well. Yes.
I
go
know
ahead,
the
Ms.
public
Rose. Go ahead.
comment has closed, but as far as enforcement, you do have to call. They're complaint-based only. Sometimes they'll call, if you get a call, and they'll come out for a violation, there are other, which now is almost all of the time, other egregious violations. Sometimes they'll ticket them, sometimes not. I do have to say, I disagree with the idea of having such a large buffer for warnings and before ticketing, because this is black letter law. It's not something that we're just inventing. It's red zones and fire hydrants. You know, there's no conflict about that. This is nothing new. And I don't think anything other than enforcement would solve the problem. My personal experience when I went to graduate school in San Francisco was I lived somewhere far from campus. If I had a car, it would take me 18 minutes from my house to there. I had to take either 2 buses or a bus and then Muni. And it would take me about an hour and 45 minutes each way, sometimes depending on rush hour traffic. It would take longer. If when I try to take a car or my partner wanted to come to visit, they would circle for 45 minutes. When dropping me off at home, there was no parking. My car was towed, I think once or twice. And so I can understand wanting a car, but life is not always convenient. And so it's a lifestyle, it's a choice. So if you come to Isla Vista, you understand that that's your choice and you might not have a car. And you just have to deal with it. It's not going to be pleasant. You might have to wait a day to go home or have to rely on your room, but that's just what it is. And I just think that not enforcing it to be nice is not the way to go. And I will say that one of the times that I had to tow, we had to call the tow truck to remove a car that was blocking the driveway. I couldn't come into my house because the driveway was blocked. That the car was towed and then the individual came, forced himself through the gate, walked 70 feet into my property and became indignant to demand where his car was. Well, you know, it was on the public street and it was towed. I had a thought that was going with it, but anyway, I just don't think that I don't think there's 2 ways about this. It's enforcement. It just has to be done and it's nothing new. And yeah, and then the other thing is currently I'm not for gouging people, but currently the ticket for a red zone, I think it's $30 odd. And so I see the cars on Camino Corto, when they get towed, they stay away for about 2 weeks. So they come back after a while and they'll come back. And if they get 2 tickets a month, there may be 3, and that's really stretching. It's still less than $100 that they would pay somewhere. So it still pays to park in the red zone. And so I think that those numbers are also not updated. And so if the CSD can, I know this is county and county ordinance, and they would have to rewrite things, but that might also be have to be the reality. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board. I think this has been a good and hearty discussion on this.
Good and hearty.
Are there any final comments before we think we have both the recommended actions? Okay, is anyone prepared to make the motion?
I'll move we approve the recommended actions, including further ones that we discussed today.
Yeah, I guess the vice president and the parking ad hoc committee.
And the notes on the mitigation slide.
Yeah, the additional strategies.
Okay. I think that was made by Toplet. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Deschler. Okay. Seeing no other discussion, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, I want to thank everyone for coming and speaking on this. I know that this is a lot of change for the community that we are staring down, and we appreciate voices in this to help streamline the change into what we hope is a positive direction for us all. So thank you. We are now going to move to item 4.2, the Community Spaces Annual Report.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you pull it up on the screen? Thank you. Well, I can't believe it's been a full year since we last spoke about the community spaces, but really excited to dive in today. We have Leslie here as well to help answer any questions, as she has also been working very closely with the program. And a big shout out to our data intern who helped me put all these graphs together, which was amazing. Thank you, David. All right, so today we're going to start with talking about the community spaces overview, going over a lot of the data that we do every year. And then the second part of this presentation, we're going to look at the fees. Now, we did do a fee analysis with only 2 months left of 2024. So you'll see a lot of similarities, but we'll really round out the conclusions of how the first quarter of fees went in our spaces. So without further ado, I'm just going to dive right in. So first, we saw a 35% increase in events from last year in both of our spaces, which totaled to 1,528 events. We had a high rise in use in spring when we look at the number of events per month. And we typically see low use in summer and the New Year's season when students often go home. Last year, April was our most popular month, and I think we're forecast to see something similar this year. When we look at the types of events that are hosted in both of our spaces, both from the calendar and self-reported data, we're looking at open community events as the most common type of event that we're seeing. Closed events ranged from things like birthday parties to baby showers to even some filming sessions for some dance groups and more. When we look at the community center versus the community room, on average, the community center is slightly more popular with about 100 more events throughout the year. However, compared to 2023, the community room saw a 39% increase in the amount of events that it held, while the center remained relatively consistent to the year before. I'm thinking that that's because the community center is about at capacity based on what we see throughout the year. But the community room, we're seeing growth. So I think eventually there will be room to have both of these kind of level out around the same. And to give you an exact number, the community room saw over 500 events last year. When looking at start times on when people are typically using the spaces for the community center, our most popular start times on the weekdays are 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. on the weekends, or 10 a.m. pardon, on the weekends. Whereas the community room is consistent with 6 p.m. on the weekdays and 2 p.m. on the weekends. So a little less popular in the morning on the weekends as the community center. When we look at the duration of events in both of our spaces, most events happen on a weekday and last less than 4 hours. So those are our workshops, town halls, and other student-led events. But when we look at events on the weekends, they're typically longer. So those are going to be between 4 and 8 hours, probably because they're more, they're bigger celebrations. They're happening throughout the whole day, like parties, retreats, birthday parties, and celebrations, as I said. When we look at the duration of repeating versus one-off events, repeating events are less long, and one-offs are typically longer. Probably because, like I said, those one-offs are those celebrations that happen a little less often and take up more time. Demographics. This is pretty consistent to what we see from year to year, primarily college students making up about 70%, families and IV making up about 36%, kids under 18 making up about 5%. The homeless population is reported here about 2.1%, though I do see more in some of our other forms of data collection. And then we're seeing an increase in adults outside of Isla Vista. This is something new that we haven't seen in previous reports. I'm thinking that this is because the class offerings that we have are more accessible pricing than things in Goleta and Santa Barbara. And so we're noticing a lot of people coming in here to take advantage of our resources. Now let's talk about how our users are feeling. So that was all of our calendar data. Now we're moving into how people are feeling about the reservation process. Our scale is 1 being the reservation process is super easy to navigate, and 5 is the reservation process is difficult, and most responses reported the reservation process to be relatively easy. When we look at feedback on what people said throughout the year, most feedback was neutral with a mix of positive and negative confidence, which we'll go over in the next few slides. But overall, the sentiment seemed to be relatively positive. So I love a good word map. This is a word map of a lot of the common words that we saw in our feedback, in our checkout form. Obviously, people are feeling thankful. We do hear a lot about trash being left from the group before, which is something that Leslie has to navigate and communicate with. We hear a lot about the lockbox. Even with all of our videos and guides, technology can be confusing sometimes, and so we do still hear that a lot, or maybe they're leaving a little bit later than they were supposed to, then they get locked out, and that's always something that we have to deal with. But I love to see that thank is the big word. People are feeling relatively grateful for all of the things in our spaces. Looking at some positive standout comments, people are saying the space is great to use, easy to get the key and set up. And then someone else left a really nice comment, just being really thankful for all of the work that we do. I include a couple photos from our Fix It Fair, and this other photos from one of our outside events. Some of the negative comments that we saw, the community center door tends to get jammed sometimes if it's not closed or opened properly. And this person said it took the efforts of 4 people to try and open. So that's something that we need to keep an eye on. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier when it says the lockbox would not open when we were leaving. That's likely because they were trying to leave after their scheduled time. And so the lockbox does close. We do recommend that people just leave the key in there because they really don't need it throughout their reservation. The doors will lock automatically. But not everyone listens to us, so I will add that. And then this last comment, again, is something that I mentioned, is people just saying it's not always clean when they got there, when there's leftover trash from the user before. I left these photos at the bottom. This is ideally what it looks like on a perfect day. These are things that we share with our users, you know, what the cabinets are supposed to look like, how to put everything away. But we also understand that planning an event is stressful, and sometimes people just want to clean up and get there as fast as possible. So that is something that we typically need to navigate as a team. Some standout events over the past year. We've launched a new event in partnership with Thriftopia and Routine, which is called Utopia. It's a combination between a farmer's market, a fix-it fair, and an art and thrift market. The last we hosted one, I guess, in 2024, and then another one last quarter. 2024 was a little bit of a slow build, but the one we saw last quarter was a huge success with well over 1,000 people that attended throughout the day. So we are seeing a lot of growth in this event. It's something I'm really excited about. Additionally, we held our first Battle of the Bands last year. We also held a Survivor and Ally Self-Care Retreat. Groove Nights are officially back in the community center. We had a voguing dance workshop, a clean air day. Voguing is a type of dance. It's a lot of hand movements. I don't want to demonstrate and picture it, but it is. Yeah, no. Voguing is a very fun form of dance. Highly recommend YouTubing that later. Clean Air Day celebration, which was thanks to a grant that we received. We had a Valentine's vegan food fair. Madre a Madre, an edible campus program, have been collaborating a lot. So that's our mothers group in the area. They've been doing fairy garden workshops with the kids that attend the mothers group. And so that's a cutie little picture in there. I know it's small on your screen. We had a Day of the Dead Art Fest, which I've already chatted with you all about. And then we had our parking and transportation town hall last year, which was a huge success as well. Moving on. New partnerships and community connections. So this photo, actually, I wanted to explain it because it is just a dinner table. This is from the Survivor and Ally Self-Care Retreat. We had like a nice dinner with everyone as part of the event, although we can't show faces, obviously. So that's why that photo's in there. But we have some new partnerships last year. We had a new development with Maria's Tacos. We recently started collaborating with McConnell's Ice Cream Truck. Zocalo was a new partnership that we got last year. Pharmacy as well started working with us a lot more and sponsoring some of our events. We added domestic violence solutions as part of our Survivor Hub and those connections that relate over into our spaces. Again, with UCSD Care, working with them more closely. We actually started working with Routine last year during Deltopia, actually. And then we've also been working with Sweet Jane more often, which has been an awesome new development. As I said before, our partnerships with Thriftopia and Routine have really proved successful in the past year to help us maintain sponsorships and consistently throw large events, especially with the amount of tasks that we've taken on with the new fees, and we don't have an internship staff anymore. Outsourcing to these two groups has proven to be a really big success in bringing people in, and also for us to be able to sponsor things. So we don't have an event budget to give out money anymore to people, but we can provide production for them. So I think that that's been a really cool strategic thing that we can offer. We can offer staging and sound for bands, which is a lot of what people are looking for. And those are often the most expensive things as part of an event. So it's been really great to be able to bring them into this space. Additionally, all of our weekly events have grown in their attendees. We used to have an average of about 3 attendees per those classes. Now we're looking at an average of about 10. So we saw a lot of growth this past year, which we're really thankful for. Those are the guitar classes, the dance classes, the mothers group, etc., and so much more. The yoga class. Our largest class last year was our dance class with an average of about 18 per week during their peak seasons. I also add that Leslie has started office hours in this past year. So Leslie is in person Tuesday, Thursdays from 11 to 6 p.m. Sometimes 11:30 to 6:30, I think on Thursdays, right? Yeah. 10:30, sorry, thank you. But her office hours have proven to be extremely successful. There are people coming in and out all day to talk to her about the reservation process, things that they're confused in. And it's especially been great having Leslie, who is bilingual, who's been communicating with a large group of our residents in order to provide more accessible reservation process. So great job.
And where do you sit for those hours?
In the office. Yeah.
Leslie just became full-time in September.
Great.
Yeah, I guess that's another
That's how that happened.
huge accomplishment. Yeah. And she's full-time and can have time to sit in the office twice a week. But yeah, that's been really successful. So that's a little overview of our community spaces. Now let's dive into the fees. Quick overview.
Can we
You
pause?
wanna pause?
Yeah, because I know this is like 2 sections, so it'll be a full other
Yeah.
thing. Any questions from the board on presentation thus far?
Yes.
Director Dustin.
I wanted to ask, I appreciate that you gave comments, both pro and con, and I wonder in your, if you could give us a sense of how is the facilities within the community room in terms of like things working, things being broken, things that we're responsible for that are broken, things that are broken that are the county's responsible for. I'm just curious as to kind of the status of equipment and facilities in the facilities.
That's good for both spaces, actually. This center,
Sure.
you see that a lot too. Yeah.
You're not gonna answer?
Well, I guess I was like writing it for
question.
questions.
I'm like, you're writing the
Sorry,
question, but
my
you're not
brain.
gonna answer.
Yeah, so as far as things here, I like to think of it of like macro and micro, right? So when you think like trash is left here, that's an us issue, right?
Yeah.
When we have things like, for example, you can see that we're dealing with this right now. There's a tear in the roof block.
Yeah.
That's something that we have to get the county involved. And the community, or in this room specifically, yeah, or if like, I think there also was something that happened with the carpets, that's something we needed the county involved. Anything with the power or the heat, for example, like we have a temperature thing that likes to just go on its own tangents and not let us operate it. And that's also something that the county operates. On the community center, again, all of the electrical things, the biggest thing that we've been having in the community center lately is the power just likes to go out on the whole back wall. They've been working on that the past couple weeks. We also have rain leaking in the winter, and that's been something that we've been reporting to them the past couple of years that they've been trying to find solutions for. The garage doors is another thing that I would say is split, because sometimes it's user error and we have to explain to people that the lasers need to be lined up, and if the lasers aren't lined up, then it's not gonna close. But sometimes we do have to get the county to come on because it's just lasers are lined up, the garage doors are temperamental and they're not closing. So those are a few examples of like what's in our power. A lot of our power is communicating with the county and making sure that they're aware of what we hear from the users. We've also had a lot more conversations with other tenants in the building as well. So like when other tenants are finding issues with something in the space, they reach out to us and then we try to coordinate that conversation with the county. Like, for example, we had a ton of issues with the elevator last year where we were going back and forth with like, no, it's not fixed yet. Yes, it is fixed yet. Are the people here? Are they not here? And trying to coordinate with their staff as well.
I had a facilities question too. I was, this is just a suggestion, maybe it's a bad idea, but going off of trying to kill two birds with one stone, you know, the issue with the door jamming and with the lockbox. I wonder if there's a way to get a door with code on it, a new door that won't jam, that also has the code on it for people.
And I love that you said that, because I'm pretty sure Jay also said last year was trying
Oh,
maybe
great.
like, is there a different door we can use that might have a different code that we can install? Like we thought about maybe putting a code on the back door, kind of near the storage area, because it's not that glass door. The problem with that one is that it also gets jammed, that we've learned. And also sometimes you have to turn the knob up, which maybe that would be fixed with a new knob and everything, but that is something we can explore, but we would need to install a new door. For the
And obviously there would be a funding associated with that we'd have to cover the cost on. I'm just thinking about potential wish list stuff since.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Yeah.
People have asked us, what's your wish list? Like other funding groups have asked us, what would you, if we helped you raise money? That's it.
Yeah, that would be great.
Director Freeman.
I have a community spaces, not quite a question, more of a comment. There's a cable that is run along the ceiling on this side of the thing, and you can remove that cable because I installed that cable. I just realized that cable is totally obsolete now. And looks kind of weird, and it's being held up with tape, and because that's how I quote installed it unquote, and
We'll take down that.
Rip it off the ceiling.
No more cables. We're going
Like
cordless.
slides under the door. I think occasionally the tape probably falls off. You probably have to retape the ceiling, and it's not attached to anything on the side anymore.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I agree. We'll
Very
definitely.
grassroots we are here.
Yeah.
Other questions from the floor on this portion?
I just wanted to ask about, the trash issue. And so is it just basically on people's good being nice that they clean up? Like, does anything bad happen when people don't clean up after themselves?
We do have a policy in place where if they don't clean up after themselves, first time's a warning. Second time, I believe, is when we start doing fees, where we have a fee associated. We just now got to a place where we've had a second warning and we need to administer a fee. I think what we're trying to do is just determine what fee is equitable for the mess that they left is the new thing that we're trying to determine, like what's fair. For example, the roof and the rug, you know, those are things that we need to coordinate with the county, and we need to see how much that's going to cost, and is the county going to replace the whole rug? That doesn't seem fair to put that on a user who used it one time, right, and maybe just damaged it a little bit. So those are the kind of conversations we're trying to have and figure out what's equitable.
But they can't reserve until they pay.
Exactly. So they can't reserve the space again, even if they've gotten the warning, because I think there's a test that they need to do that essentially they go over the rules again, because not everyone reads our emails, and we're becoming more and more aware of that. Which, I mean, nobody reads the rules for anything, right? Nobody looks through the contract that they're signing necessarily, but we're trying to think of ways that we can really encourage people to read it, because there's a lot of helpful tips, like don't leave the key don't leave your key in your pocket. It could get locked, you know. We're thinking maybe doing like a video or something. Maybe people watch a video. I don't know. we're playing around with the idea. But yeah,
For the university, when we have so many training things that we need to do, and we have to do a Q&A, and you have to pass the Q&A at the end. So there you go.
maybe we should have a
That's a
little
good
Google
idea.
form.
Yeah,
All right.
it's not rocket science, but you
Yeah.
cannot answer the questions correctly if you haven't watched the tape or read the, yeah,
I like that. I like that a
there you
lot.
go.
I think we have an idea. That's good.
Okay, any other questions on this portion of the presentation? All right, please proceed to the fees.
Okay, awesome. So just a reminder of what the policy is. This is what the users see. We've got like the calendar for open and closed events, when it's free, when it's low cost, when there's sliding scale options, or when it's only high cost, no sliding scale, which is only for closed events, I will add. A reminder of what kind of falls into these categories is on the next page. So zone 1 is like a free open, Zone 1 is in a not super desirable time. It is open to the community, and that is completely free. Zone 2 is in a desirable time, and that is a sliding scale. It's either free or low cost based on whether or not you fill out the sliding scale, and those are closed to the community. A low fee and open to the event is more approaching a better time. For example, like an EDM concert, it's open to the community, it's in a big time. Zone 4 is a sliding scale, closed event. So it's going to be around that same time as the open event, but since it's closed, it's sliding scale. And then that zone 5 is now we're approaching prime times. So this is a prime time event. You're either going to pay a low or high fee. This is something that's open to the community. It will be a low cost if you apply for that sliding scale. Otherwise, it will be high. And then zone 6 is a closed event and a prime time. Those are always going to be a high cost.
And high doesn't mean that.
No, it's
higher.
$25.
Yeah,
Yeah.
higher.
Clarify.
Yeah.
$25 an hour is high for the community center. $10 per hour is the high for the community room. Low cost is $20 for the community center, and low cost is $8 for the community room, to give a little bit of a spectrum.
Bargains.
Bargains, right. That's what everyone says. That's why they're pretty popular. Okay, so average duration. So zone 4, which is the sliding scale closed events during prime time, had the longest average duration, which is good for us to know because they are closed to the community. So that's important. While zone 2, which is sliding scale closed events during slow times, had the shortest. So even though that they are coming during a slow time, we're still seeing that they're pretty rapid in the types of events that we're seeing. In comparison to free events versus paid events on average have a longer duration than free events, probably because they're paying for a celebration or one of those one-off events that they're going to be using the space longer for. Number of events. So because we just launched this in fall quarter of 2024, the number of paid events is minuscule to the amount of events that we had that were free, because it was literally just a couple of months throughout the year. So you can see that there was only, little tiny red bar for both of them. So I think next year, when we look at 2025 as a whole, we'll actually get to see a better comparison of how much was free versus paid throughout the year. Payment types, almost everyone wants to pay online. We only have cash, check, or online as payment choices, and a lot of people are paying online. There's only a few people that chose to use a check. And last but not least, how much money are we generating? Zone 6, those are the prime time, high cost events. They brought in the most amount of money, but the total income that we received in 2024 was $6,000 for fall quarter. And that concludes my report today. We got a little bit of how the community spaces are doing, and then also how the fees are doing, but I will open up to questions.
All right. Thank you, Maya. Questions from the board?
The revenue that Did you call on me?
Yes.
The revenue that you generated, was that, I missed, I kind of spaced out when you were talking about numbers.
Okay, it's fair.
The revenue that you generated, was that what you anticipated generating? Given the number of events you had, the number of time? Is that pretty much in alignment or?
Yes, let me think about this for a second. So I know that our goal was 25,000 for the fiscal year. And if we break that up into
Quarters.
quarters,
Essentially.
math.
So is that one
Six
quarter?
times
Yeah.
4 is
So 24,000, yeah. So
Yeah.
you're in line.
So we're right on schedule.
Cool.
Thank you. I was like, I need to pull out
We're
the
not gonna,
calculator.
we're not gonna do
Good
any money in
math.
the
I like
summer though, so we need,
Yeah,
spring is
right.
busier, so.
Yeah,
Right,
so
right.
we,
Hopefully we'll make all the money in spring.
exactly, we're anticipating that spring will be more than $6,000,
Mhm.
hopefully. And actually, as of right now, our spring is pretty much completely booked. Like,
Wow.
there's very few spots that are open, so we should have that number pretty soon, actually, to see if we're hitting the goal.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was gonna be one of my questions, which is how are fees doing at managing the inflow of people wanting to book events? Because I know that this is something that, I just think about my own quest to get fees in this, or not fees, quest to get space in this area when I was a student, a part of a student group, of it always being like for all of the student resources building spaces, it was like a freaking mad dash at the beginning of the quarter. Same thing for the USEN to get your space locked in, and half the time you didn't get it when you needed it because it had already gotten swooped up after like the first week. So what's the status? How did it work with previous quarters?
We're getting there. I'm gonna be honest. We are getting to that level where it's pretty cutthroat. Like, people are waiting. I mean, not kindly, respectfully, but people really are waiting for our reservations to open. We actually had to be, how do I say this? We had to be a little bit more strict with our like large policy. So in our policy, some large gatherings that had over an X amount of people were able to reserve the space before the opening. And we've recently had to put a little bit more of a cap on that, saying it only can be weddings or resource fairs that are approved and that they come to us with, because every weekends are getting booked. And so we started booking out weekends so that we could reserve those spaces for open community events. And that's just been kind of our strategy, is trying to see like, okay, well, before everything fills up, how can we make sure that there's still space for the things that we want to see, or that we hope to see, right? Another thing is, for example, we know that study space is a lot of what students want space for. We started doing our Winter Wonderland study hours, for example. So we will book out all of the prime times of that week to make sure that we can accommodate the flow of people that might be coming in. And that's something that we'll probably consistently do, is to make sure we have those open spaces. But as a whole, I would say that we still have non-prime times are open, right? Like, there's still times where the community spaces are not being utilized. Like, I come here in the mornings, there's not always something going on in each space. And so there's still opportunity for people to use this space for free throughout the quarter. If they just need a space for something, they can probably find it with us. But if they're looking for an event that they're planning, or something in the evening that's really accessible to everyone, they're going to need to plan ahead and maybe do some outreach with us as well, and communicate with our team, because we'll get you in, but we have to get creative sometimes. Well, is there anything that you want to add to the influx you're seeing as far as fall quarter and difference?
I mean, yeah, I think you brought everything up, you touched base on everything. Yeah, like one of the bigger problems was that like people would book really in advance, because we did start seeing a lot more birthday parties, baptisms, like family events. And those do take a little more time to plan, I think, because they do also have to secure their own vendors for like decorations, catering, and all that. So finding like a good spot has been like a little bit like of like not a struggle necessarily, but something that we really have to think about, because we also want to make sure that, you know, like students and clubs also have space, but we also don't want to like not provide space for like families.
We want to find that balance and we want to make sure that we're encouraging both because both are really important. So yeah, keeping it to our reservation times is going to be a big point.
Essentially, what I'm hearing is that there's a reason why we call the prime times prime time. I always saw that.
Yeah, they are. They're very
makes
popular.
And
Yeah.
how early do we release the blocks for scheduling?
They're on the first of the month before the quarter begins. So
Okay.
it's like,
So like 30-ish days.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Thanks for that. Other questions from the board? Presentation?
Yeah, oh, I have a question. I wanted to ask how it's going with the parking lot. Any issues?
Which one?
It's-
Oh, I'm sorry, this one, the one with
It's
the,
just left open
It's left-
24/7 now and people.
24/7?
It's left open 24/7, not our choice. And
Mm.
people seem though to self-police and rarely park in it. I think the residents have been trapped in there sometimes when people
that's not
have
a bad
chosen
thing.
to just
Well-
when IVRPD has closed it because we haven't done that.
Ah,
And then we get flooded with phone calls. And one time the sheriff had someone drive through the park to get out because I was just downtown at dinner and couldn't come fast enough to open it up. But that was before we solved one of the problems, which we now share the lock
Oh, you
with
did. That's
IVRPD.
good.
So now there's one lock instead of there used to be two. So it's self-policed. Like the community, like you go there right now, it's open and no one's
Yeah,
except IVRPD's cars.
I will add though, like when we do reserve it for events and there's cars in it,
Yeah,
it's a huge issue.
yeah.
You know, when we first started reserving it, like we couldn't get the cars out. And so the cars just became a part of the event and then got, vending space. And that was a struggle. I will say the past couple events though, IVRPD's team has been really helpful in helping us get cars towed. We had to get a car towed at the Battle of the Bands because they left their car in there. They weren't supposed to be in there. Nobody knew whose car it was. It was in front of the stage.
And the users can rent the lot for their event from
Right.
IVRPD.
Yeah.
So they can, like if you're having your birthday party, you can then go to IVRPD and say, we want to use the rest of your lot. And people do that.
And do they pay IVRPD for
I
that?
actually have no idea if they
Yes.
charge or not.
No, they don't pay. So I was communicating with Luis a while ago, and I think he maybe was like, "Oh, this is too much back and forth." Like, because there's reservations like every weekend, specifically for like birthday parties. So I was like sending the families there for them to ask for permission, but then he ended up saying like, "Oh, it's okay. Like, just let people that reserve your space like park there." So I think that's kind of maybe why they also just left it open. Eventually, I don't really know if that's the case, but yeah, they don't have to.
I sent the general manager the MOU, the agreement we're supposed to sign with them to manage the lot for 2019. I just sent it again to get that going.
That'll be a good agenda item for the next meeting.
Not the next meeting,
We've been doing it
maybe in
since
like 6 months.
2019. Why rush? Oh my God, I think that's even before I was on the board.
Yeah, it's been a long
Good
time.
Lord.
Okay, any other questions? I think I saw public comments. I'm gonna open it up for public comment and I'll call on you this one.
Thank you. But this is a really expensive question, comment. The comment is, it seems like maybe it would be good to make a study of just like, is there a need to do a huge renovation, get another building, a bigger one, for not just the central operations, but even for gatherings. So I wanted to put that out there, and maybe it's a question, has this been done? Probably not, because the CSD is a young entity, so definitely maybe food for thought for 10-year anniversary.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Oh, and one more thing. It's not easy for me to say this, but since there is a report today about the uses of the community rooms, it seems like there's kind of an oversaturation reason I bring it up is because the Calvary Chapel bought the property across from here. So it just seems like a lot of religious interests are targeting this community, and even the students in particular. And with one of the churches in particular, there's been problems and even discriminating. So I'll stop there. I won't give more details. I like to talk to the people involved. They iron out those issues and not bring dirty laundry to the board. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments online?
No.
Okay, back to the board, Director Freeman.
What spaces do we control upstairs again?
Conference room.
Conference room. Have we considered ever, I mean, do you actually use the conference room all day, or have we ever considered like renting the conference room?
We keep it to tenants only because before COVID, there were like a lot of security issues upstairs
Oh, that
that
makes
the
sense.
tenants
That makes
complained
sense.
about. So we just don't want to bring people we don't track upstairs.
That
We
makes
might,
sense.
with the clinic workers and the nurses and the counseling for UCSB, privacy. So, but it is used a lot by UCSB for group counseling. So that is one of the main uses, I think, of it. And the clinic uses it too, but one of the main uses is group counseling.
Okay, any other comments? I'll share just a couple things. Every time that you guys present, it's always so thorough, and there's so much data in here that really helps us drill down on exactly how things are going and how they might be better. And I've really been impressed with the variety of events that we have there. Particularly, I am always really excited about the events that are nightlife related, because they help us solve some of our other big goals that we have as a community. And it's good to hear that it's helpful to know that some of the prime times are getting saturated and getting booked pretty quickly. I think to me that says maybe it's time to evaluate what the high end fee is there to try to bring that into alignment. I also understand, as you mentioned, that there's a balance that needs to be struck. And I think that from just the demographics of the users of the space that was in one of these slides that I can't find anymore, it does seem like that balance is, I can tell you're taking great pains to strike that balance, which I think is really, really good, because that is important for the community. So I'll leave my comments there.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, well then with that, we'll close out this item. I've got music on the brain apparently, because we've got maybe something else big that you have cooked up for this weekend that has to do with music.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
thank you for all your work on that as well, and we'll look forward to seeing it in action this weekend.
Thank you. Yes, come by the Spring Festival.
I know, I'm so excited.
It's gonna be a
I'm
big
getting my
one.
face paint ready. I got my bubbles.
All right.
Oh, you're gonna get some teeth gems?
Oh, that's a good idea. No, I'm just
I
gonna
think
do
it'd be
sparkles.
Like a grill.
If you're at the next board meeting with a grill, I know why. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
Leslie.
both.
Okay, we're gonna move to item 4.3, 2025-26 draft board goals.
Okay, well, I had told you guys we were gonna get a new format. I didn't realize there's gonna be a new document or like a completely new thing, but I was just thinking, it's like, there's different kind of authors. You can be an architect or a gardener, and a gardener like kind of goes as you go, and so that's what happened here. It was definitely garden, not pre-planned going into this, but that's where we landed, is this it's called strategic plan now, I guess. So the vision, mission, and values, these are the same they've been since 2018, 2017. So we're building off of these. We've never heard we want to change these. So they're still like the foundation and the basis of what we do. And then the rest of the plan, it's reformatted. You know, we used to have like each service and then a list of like 5 to 10 things we were going to do for that service area. So now it's 4 strategic goals, and those are, you know, big picture things that are flowing from our foundational statements. And then, so those are like, yeah, it's make Isla Vista a safe, healthy, and enjoyable community. So that's a big picture statement. The outcomes that get listed are going to be the things we'd want to say happened that would meet that goal. So to be a healthy and safe community, medical calls are 0, you know, related to being healthy. And then the outputs are like what we do. You know, we went and knocked on this many doors, or we distributed this much Narcan, or we had this many people come to our event. The tactics, how we do it, so like our methodologies, which, you know, does impact things a lot. And then the inputs, which is in here but not bolded, is what we put in, like our investment. And then finally, the SMART goal, that is like the tangible thing we're going to do next fiscal year to change any of these things, to adjust. That's usually what would have kind of been our list of activities before, but now it's kind of expanded. And the definitions for all these things are at the end here. If anybody wants to get more technical, they're all here at the end. So, yeah, I know we've been here a long time. So the first strategic goal is Isla Vista is safe, healthy, and enjoyable for all residents, especially on weekend nights and days such as Deltopia. We have a lead department. So we have a lead department here. It's our community programs and engagements, the department Maya heads, as well as public safety, which isn't really a staff department, but it is where we do all these things. And then public works and sustainability department, that's a supporting department because they do the lighting stuff, which is one of our versions of safety. I don't think you want me to go through every bullet point here. And that's why this is a draft, to get your input, and then we can finalize this for a future meeting. But this is a series of different outcomes that if, let's say, all of these things happened, you might be able to say we have a safe, healthy, and enjoyable community for all on weekends and days. So this is things like reduction in medical emergencies and hospitalizations, going towards 0 for alcohol and substance abuse, keeping our 0 annual opioid deaths in Isla Vista, which we have currently. More people are registered as active bystanders to prevent interpersonal violence crimes. Roof and cliff falls going, at 0. So that would be an outcome. It's at 0. And so that's our list of outcomes here. So it's a draft, but it's from the retreat for the most part. And all of these would, get us to safe, healthy, enjoyable community. Then there's a list of 6 goals that these are all things that came up at our retreat, essentially, that fall under this, that we would want to do one of these things to impact our outcomes. So expanding our spring festival, developing a public safety plan. This is an old goal that's now just being continued through IVSafe. Evaluating the non-sworn public resources like the safety stations and the UCIV program, and seeing how we can implement some sort of SNAP program and coordinate all these better. This came up at IVSafe recently. Putting together a comprehensive flow chart for how survivors of interpersonal violence, such as sexual assault, are served by the system. It's been a long time talked about to have this chart to, really identify the problems in the system. Introducing some way to measure resident safety perception. We kind of have this, but it could be a lot better. It was set up hastily in 2020, and we could do it better. And finally, launching more formal partnerships with CARE and sending together to end sexual assault to provide survivor resources and preventative resources specifically. So those are like the 6 things we'll do under the essentially public safety community enjoyment goal. Then the rest of this, it's not really a goal, it's just a description of what we currently do to meet the goal. So that's just for information only. So that's the format of how all this is set up. I'll just go a little more quickly through the next ones now that it's set. But our next goal would be that civic engagement is meaningful, inclusive, and shapes our decision-making effectively. This is all language we've used in the past, but we're using it now in this way. Shorter list of outcomes here, but it's, again, do people run for the elections here? Do they come speak in our public comment? Do they utilize our services? Are they participating in other civic opportunities? These are different ways we can say we've done that if we see that happening. And some of the goals here for this year, the SMART goals, this came up at the retreat, having a scenario-based community feedback mechanism. So like, I think Jay, you brought this up, which we say, we're gonna do X in this way. Do you think that's a good idea? Creating a system for board members to build relationships with community leaders through regular meetings and outreach. That's something we've already talked about as we want to do. And we actually think it can, there's a lot of opportunity here. So it is the level of a goal to get this done. Finishing our brand audit and implementing that. Reinventing IV Community Network, which we now run as a community education and feedback opportunity. And then getting our outreach materials to 50% bilingual in Spanish. They're not that yet, but they'll get there. And the next goal is Isla Vista residents enjoy a sustainable and high quality of life in housing, parking, transportation, and neighborhood beauty. A huge number of outcomes here, lots of different things we can track if it's being done. Is there, is the tonnage leaving IV in the Marlboro trucks reducing, right? Like that's one way you can track it. You can track the parking congestion that's in this area. Is it down to 85%? Is there a lot of litter in the sidewalks and gutters, or is that not a problem as much anymore? Our tree equity score, which we don't set, but another group sets for us so we can track. Things we'd want to make sure, again, all from the retreat, pretty much from what we want to do in this area. Make sure the wave is launched because we do have a key role in that with the gate. Launch a parking compliance program and car-free education campaign. Working with the county to make sure the money they allocated for lighting gets implemented, and that we look at CSA 31, County Service Area 31, for potential. Oh, that's actually later. Oh, getting ahead of myself. And then launching a program like our tree program, but for lighting. So private property owners can get a free light or money for lighting that impacts the public spaces. And that was one of our former board members, Bob Geis, one of his ideas that's been sitting out there for a while. But now that we've done the tree program, we can maybe look at this. Because Abrego has really good lighting, and it's because all the buildings are lit on Abrego. Just, that's one of the reasons. And so the last goal is, there's so much under just this area 3. The next goal is Isla Vista has a growing level of self-governance, efficient resources to meet our needs, and confidence in the efficient use of existing resources. This is a little more nebulous of a goal, but there are some outcomes. You can make sure that our reserves are met, that we have different financial funding sources coming into the district, our deficits closed, we have stronger relationships, we have more knowledge of how our tax dollars are spent here, which we have a lot of, but we can get more. We can have more, this is kind of self-referential, but we do need more metrics to make sure we're tracking these outcomes. So something we need to do. And then the goals here are to explore revenue or bond options and present 5 options to the board in January. Maybe we might not get to 5, but present some options to the board in January. Establish strong relationships with all the new leadership in town. The new RPD board, new UCSB leadership. County has a lot of department leadership changed recently that we should keep building relationships with. Hold discussions on IV governance issues and how to make things better, and including CSA 31, and maybe publish a paper about that by September. I don't want to say maybe, we will publish a paper. I'm making it too soft. No, we will do that. Compile a list of opportunities to rent, lease, or operate community facilities in the area, or to purchase as well. Continue evaluating the compost collective program, efficiency and effectiveness and integration with other programs. having a public facing dashboard, this is maybe a little ambitious, but maybe having a public facing dashboard connected to like the state of Isla Vista so that the community can be educated of what's the facts here essentially. Finishing our audit of the utility user tax of our utility providers. And that's it for that area. And that's the 4 goal areas and all the, you know, little things under them we'll do in the next year to meet those goals. But definitely very draft, so we can make a lot of changes and edits to this before we approve it.
Okay, well, there's a lot there. So I'll just open up questions from the group. I have one suggestion for an added goal to community engagement in line with that we're auditing the utility users tax. I think it would behoove us to do a report to the public on what we used the money on for over the period of time that it's been active. And of course, that can reference the results of the audits in terms of financial accountability.
Yeah, we did like a report to the public once when Ethan was the board president. So we have something to go on.
Something in line with that. And now we've got 7 years of it. I know SB CAG does something similar with Measure A.
Yeah,
a lot of examples. Any other questions or comments from board members? I think the silence captured all of our potential thoughts.
Cindy took really good notes at the retreat, and
yeah, very
not waste time
comprehensive
talking.
document. That is for sure. That is for sure.
I will say, I love the new setup. It's so, like as staff, it's way easier to reference and refer back to versus kind of how we had it outlined before. So I think it's super great.
I agree with that. Director Dutchler.
This is really impressive. Really impressive. One question I had was, you're tracking so much.
Yeah.
With every goal, you have so many different outcomes, right? And I just wonder, like, what is that going to do to staff's workload to track all these different outcomes? It's pretty intense.
It's for sure. I think it's more of a catch-all list. So we might not be able to do all of them.
Okay.
Or, I think part of this is just to start cataloging them. And I think that's what we might try to work on this year. It's one of those goals is how do we can we even track some of these things? And if we can't track it, we can remove it.
Got it.
So I think it's more of like, this is what we think would be success. And yeah, if we can't track it, we won't. And if it's too much work, we won't for sure. But we do think we should have some of these. And this would be maybe a year where we feel it out and see how it works.
Other questions or comments from the board? Okay, well, hearing done, I think the plan is to bring this back as final for our second go around at is that the next board meeting?
In a week, if
In
you
a
want
week,
to.
all right. turn it
A
around.
week? We're meeting in a week? What?
Actually, this is we skipped last week.
Spring break.
Yeah, so you got a free day and then now you have
But I will say when we're meeting and doing agenda review, I've been looking for those opportunities of, I wonder if we can combine these meetings. We just have so much stuff that is on the docket.
The next 4 meetings will be busy.
So
It's
very
natural.
long meetings.
It's just the spring.
As we get further into the year though, know that we are looking for those opportunities.
Okay.
July.
We'll hold you
Not
to
that we
it.
don't love hanging out with you guys. Okay, so I don't think we need any action. We've provided direction to staff. And we'll move on to the last item on our agenda, formation of the parking ad hoc committee.
Cool. So at our retreat, it was brought up that now that we're getting more into implementation mode on parking, it would be good to have a group of board members working on that to be part of different discussions and to workshop ideas. The reason we settle on an ad hoc committee, which is more of a nimble system, is because we started the parking study, set up the study itself, even to like draft the plan for the study and to get everybody bought in. We had an ad hoc committee. And then once the study started, we had a public committee that then the public could come to once a month and air out their issues and concerns. I think what might be a good way to do this is to have another ad hoc committee to be more nimble, to get things set up. And once we're set up to run a parking program, we'd have a public committee that the public can go to and complain or share ideas or their perspective too. So that, I think, until in the meantime, people can come to the board meeting like they've done today. So that would be the proposal, is that we have an ad hoc committee, because there's so much to do between now and our projected launch date, hopefully of next April 1st, or not April 1st, but next spring quarter. But it is even setting a projected launch date, the plan for staffing up, what the budget would be, the timeline. We're gonna have a lot of things going back and forth with the county on the agreements that we need to review before they come to the board for approval. Discussions about funding and so there's gonna be a lot of different moving pieces here. And so it is gonna be good to have board members, deeply involved, because it is complicated stuff, very touchy topics that will come to the full board, but good to have 3 of you at least fully involved before it gets to that point. So yeah, just looking to have an ad hoc and 3 people we can have on it.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask, is there still the executive committee of UCSB and county and IVCSD?
I mean, it doesn't technically exist anymore, but it is something I've been thinking about, is we do need some sort of parking and transportation group between the 3 agencies.
Yeah.
But we need to set that up in some way and give it some formal reason to exist and charge. Like, I mean, I think we know what it is, but we need to get, it's not to monitor the study now. It's we want to implement.
No, it's exactly what you just described of an ad hoc committee. And I just wonder, is it more efficient to have a parking and transportation committee with the 3 entities, so that we don't have an ad hoc committee that's going to talk about issues and then wrangle and wrestle to try and meet with the various people?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good approach. We have to get agreement on it, but I think it's
from the other 2 entities.
From the other 2, but I think we should do that. I think we should do that, and we can bring it up. We're having different meetings with both soon. So
I like the idea of formalizing a structure with all 3 entities to really hold people accountable, because otherwise I think we could be potentially just chasing down, not having accountability. He said, she said, they said,
Totally agree.
Yeah,
totally
there you go on that.
Director.
I feel like I misheard something you said. Do you say that one of the goals of the ad hoc committee is to provide a place for people to provide feedback after the?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, for board members, like, quick feedback, like we're working with the county on the different agreements and MOUs. We need to.
For us to provide feedback to random other entities quickly. Okay, not for other people to come and.
No. For us to workshop things quickly. Yeah.
So as it currently stands, do we still have the parking standing committee, or did we disband that? I forgot.
We didn't vote to disband it, I guess, but it's not filled. So
should we agendize deleting that one?
We could do that.
Okay.
I mean, we could make it dormant. I need to look at the charter again, because I think the charter did at one point mention implementation roles if and when that got there. So maybe we can just reorient it later. Or part of the parking, this is getting too technical, but part of the parking implementation is going to be creating a parking commission.
Right.
That is like a 3-person body minimum that is appointed. So that might be another direction that this all goes. So I don't know. I think maybe we could shut the committee down for now then.
Yeah. Probably should dump it somewhere. So the thing that you were saying that this ad hoc committee would do is temporary?
Temporary, yeah. I mean, maybe I'd say 6 months, because if we wanted to start in a year, by 6 months from now, we should be done and actually doing things versus like doing setup. So in the next 6 months, we do all the background work to hopefully be doing real work in January.
Well, then the last thing is that, so I'm the one person who was still on the parking standing committee. And actually, I don't know if Kirsten was updated on all the things in previous meetings, but I will not be on the board for much longer.
Shut the front door. Why? Really?
Yeah, and so, I don't think it really makes sense for me to be the person.
Why are you moving to
who's
Carter
on
Green? Why
the,
can't she move here?
They bought a house.
Oh, that's cute. Okay. Oh, good Lord.
Morning Street, but yeah, but so, you've been gone. But oh yeah, so it doesn't really make sense for me to be, I think, anchoring any of
Yeah.
the parking things going forward. But that said, I could, maybe there might be a reason to put me on it for a while in order to provide consulting and transition. So I'm happy to do whatever people
When are
would
you
like.
leaving us?
But it would be when my lease ends on my apartment currently, which is like, I think it's mid-June.
Oh, that's so soon.
We are currently doing,
Oh.
like I'm still very firmly living here, to be clear, and we're currently like
Well, just
doing
trying to
renovation
drive
on
in
that
is
house in
hard.
Margarita, so.
That's one more free parking space.
I have, my apartment building has a parking space. for me.
You're losing your
Good.
lease.
Good.
You'll never
Well-
return again.
That is very sad for me. We've worked together many, many years.
It's weird because we already went through this whole
I'm
discussion.
so
the same
sorry.
Discussion, now
Okay,
you
I'll
get to
be-
go through it
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
I know.
Feelings
Thanks a
are
lot, Jonathan.
I will add to what Director Freeman said by the fact that I think I probably forced myself to be on this committee because we have a meeting with County Public Works tomorrow, or sorry, not tomorrow, on Thursday. I don't know what day it is. To discuss some of this stuff, and I've already been involved in some of the discussions with their staff. But I support the structure of this for now because I think what we do need right now is flexibility, and when we get the structure in place, having the commission and accountability will be really important. So I think different tools in the toolbox for different phases. So I see the time-limited project that's accomplishing is securing the delegation of authority agreement with the county, securing funding, and sort of the overseeing the development of the startup.
Exactly.
Okay, any other thoughts on the board?
I don't want to volunteer for this. But I think I've missed some appointments, so, if any of the folks down there don't want to do it, or you, I would, I did the parking before, but I also just want to I just want to make sure that I am not in a situation where I'm representing both the university, or maybe it's better, no, the university and IVCSD. So that would be my only hesitancy.
I think a lot of the work of the committee, of this ad hoc committee, won't necessarily be negotiating with ECSB. Like ECSB will have a role.
Yeah.
Like, of course, we'll have a role in the county too, but a lot of this is looking at on the internal side. Like, does this program look good? Is this a right budget we want to be comfortable with?
Got it.
Is this agreement look good for IVCSD? I mean, there'll be some discussion of, can we secure funding?
So it's not external facing as more
Yeah.
internal facing.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, another thing I think will be important with this is to have like a diversity of perspectives, because I think the product that the committee ultimately brings to the board is going to be planned for how this starts up.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to overlook perspectives that may be different.
Yeah.
And that will be important.
I think the student voice that you all, just because I think you brought up some really interesting perspectives earlier when we were talking about some of these issues. So when we were talking about, where people shop, where people having cars, I think that's really important to have student perspective.
I wouldn't mind doing it, but I just don't think I'm that informed on a lot of stuff, if that would like hinder me in any way.
You didn't know crap when we
Okay.
started.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that.
Okay. Okay, interest there. That's the first person who's volunteered, although I volunteer myself.
Yeah, we accept.
And as I'm willing to be on it
Yeah.
for to the
Yeah.
extent which I can be on it. but yeah.
I think just
You can make a
given,
decision about that.
given the time, the fact that you are not long for this board, as they say, it's probably a better idea to find someone that can have longevity.
Maybe we can have him be a consultant to the ad hoc committee.
After
Well,
June.
once he leaves
Yeah.
the board, yeah.
Once-
That's what I mean,
I'm
after
happy to-
June.
I mean, I
and
am
then-
happy.
Because,
Kind of what Bob Geist did with our buildings.
yeah, I mean, Jay, you have so much, knowledge on these issues for so many years. I think it would be terrible to lose that.
I am very happy to do that for what it's worth, and
I think
I'm certainly not
love
going
my
to,
idea.
Yeah.
like, disappear and then never talk.
I won't give my farewell speech just yet, but I'll tell you it'll have the same thing I told Marcos, which is we may have to call you in for backup at some point.
Yeah.
Even when
Yeah.
you are a civilian. Okay, any other interest in the committee? Okay, one, I'm saying two. Director Deschler is saying that she is three.
I'm not very reliable, but I'll do it. No.
I thought you said we couldn't do it.
I will if I'm on last. I will just because I think I could offer value. Although, I don't know, could I offer value? I don't know, really?
Why don't we have Jay do it for now and then
Yes.
you can come in later?
Good idea.
Actually, I thought I maybe misunderstood. I thought you
Yeah.
said that you couldn't do it because you'd be on both sides.
She
of
wasn't
the-
sure if.
But you weren't sure.
I
Okay.
wasn't sure. I don't want to, yeah, be negotiating against myself.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't think it sounds like we're envisioning this committee necessarily as negotiating with the university.
Yeah, that's what Jonathan said.
I
Yeah.
think we have a separate committee that's working on that, and you're not involved in that process so that you don't have to feel like you might be on both sides.
Yeah. Cool.
And,
How about I be Jay's backup
okay, yeah, we can have alternates. We talked about that
when he's done?
when he's done.
Yeah,
Okay,
I could do that
that's fair.
if no one else wants.
And by then you should know if it's a conflict with the university.
No, it won't be a conflict for me to do that. No.
Wait, it will or?
It will not. It
Oh,
will not.
okay.
No, it will not.
I was, same thing that happened to Jay right now. I was like, wait, what?
What's going on?
Okay.
It's because we're tired and cranky.
I know.
We're almost done.
Okay.
Okay, so, is there a motion to form,
I'll make that motion.
made by Topliff, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Cephas. Any public comment online? I think that is a no. Let's bring it back to the board. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and I am appointing Director Cephas, myself, and Director Freeman to the ad hoc committee with Director Deschler as Director Freeman's alternate.
Nicely done.
Okay. Now we are going to move to reports from the board. Any board members have reports they'd like to share?
I would just like to remind the other board members and myself that we owe evaluation of Jonathan by this Friday. And the
Uh-oh.
documents were sent to you earlier this week.
It's on my to-do
Thank
list.
you for that reminder. That
Yeah,
is
thank
a good reminder. I pinned the email to the top of my inbox. to make
Wait, question, who emailed that email?
sure. That would have been Jamie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jamie Traxler.
When was it sent?
That's all the bombshells I have to drop.
I think the email went out yesterday, or did I get a
No.
follow-up yesterday?
Oh, did you do
I think it went out yesterday.
Oh, because I got the original one. I think it was last week.
Jonathan checked, and I got it.
Yeah, I sent it everyone Tuesday, March 25th.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jay, I didn't get this one on your behalf because it's about me.
Oh, yeah,
So-
Jamie, I think you actually have the wrong email address for me, so I'm
Oh,
never getting.
okay. I'll forward it to you again, Jay. Sorry. I think I sent it to
The made-up email that doesn't exist.
your main email. So I'll send it to the other one. I'll send it to the Soric one.
Thank you. Thumbs up from everyone else that got
Thumbs
it.
up.
Okay, I see thumbs up. Perfect. My report is Jonathan will mention that we gave a presentation to the County Planning Commission about the results of the parking study, and it went well. We got some great feedback from the commission about all the challenges, and they were very receptive to the need for improvements out here. In addition to that, tomorrow, Director Cepos and I are attending the Narcan distribution that we are co-hosting with County Supervisor Caps, and I believe Gauchos for Recovery as well.
What is that?
That is tomorrow at 4 p.m. at Walter Caps Park. All who are available are encouraged to join. And then lastly, I had the chance to have coffee with the Vice President of the Recreation and Park District Board. And we had a good conversation about the ways that our organizations can work together, starting with setting up more regular leadership meetings that we used to do, but had kind of fallen a little bit by the wayside. Cool. Any other board reports? Okay. Next is, sorry, I lost the agenda. Are we at
Standing ad hoc.
From standing ad hoc? Thank you. I don't think we've done any committee reports. You just shared the ad hoc committee report on GM.
Our outreach committee met, and I think we're going to be developing like a list of groups for the board to start reaching out to. That's our next step.
Excellent.
Who's on the outreach committee?
Sorry, the outreach committee did not meet.
Oh.
That was a spring festival committee that
Oh.
met, but we are going to meet with the ad hoc committee on outreach. But that's what we're going to do in that, is develop that list and get it to the board. But yeah, our spring ad hoc met and went over our final plans and message, and our new door hanger.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Yeah, they look good.
Okay. Report from legal counsel.
Well, Carrie stole my thunder, but I will be sending a follow-up email to you all tomorrow, just so you all know to turn in your reports. And if you have any questions, you can contact me directly. Please do not reply all, as a reminder. And I will see you all on April 8th in person.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you very much, District Council. Report from Manager.
Right. So, you know, since the last board meeting, I did go on vacation, and then since then it's all Deltopia, as it usually is in the second half of March. We're I think in one day I went to 4 Deltopia meetings in a row almost last week. But it is just the season of how it goes at this point. So that's been the big focus. Yeah, we have our new door hanger, and the message is going out tomorrow. Lots being done. You know, Maya will give you the debrief, but we have a lot of different creative community engagement this year on social media about out-of-towners and not having a safe Deltopia. So lots going on there. Move out is already starting. So Jenna is already starting our move out operations and getting people ready and volunteers, because in only 6 to 7 weeks, a lot of that will be beginning. IV Safe, we have a new date for that. It's on May 7th. It's going to be Deltopia focused, and then any other topics, which we'll discuss at our next meeting if we have any other topics, but that's the main topic right now. Today, you approved it on our agenda, our letter of support, but we worked with the county to apply for Measure A funds. So Isla Vista, Measure A is a sales tax in Santa Barbara County that everybody pays, that makes, you know, money for transportation improvements, and we feel like Isla Vista has gotten not our fair share of a tax that we pay. So we worked with the county on the sidewalk plans that we did not get them to do back in February. We worked with them to apply for those same projects for Measure A. So that went through today, and our staff was super involved in making that application happen. The county submitted it, but we helped. Jenna was, you know, got letters of support from every possible agency and group in Isla Vista to help get the application through. So we're crossing our fingers on that. I don't know when we find out, but I think it's pretty soon, in the next couple months. We talked a lot about today on what we're doing for parking, but you know, we presented as a Park Planning Commission. We're meeting this week on funding, and we're just doing. There's a lot happening in that area too. It is using up a lot of time, understandably so. And I just, you know, I will note, just we are going to have hopefully our Ivy Food Co-op plans at our next meeting. We are resolving some questions from the county auditor controller's office that we think we can figure out this week. And then finally, I did want to update the board, and we can do a more full update on this, but we did receive a letter from IVCSD renewing their commitment of $200,000 per year for 7 years, and we appreciate the continued support. But we had budgeted and planned differently, so we will need to make some serious financial decisions for our district's financial health now that the income is going to be different than we had planned for it to be. So we do need to make some decisions soon.
Thank you for that report. Any questions from the board? Director
I saw in the email, you said they didn't meet with you, but they sent that. Is there like a way to appeal that or ask for more, or is that?
They made the commitment as fast as they could, and I don't think there is an opportunity for more.
Okay.
And it's not because they didn't want to.
And so that's just the same amount we've had in past,
The last 7 years.
but it's obviously less now. 'Cause
Yeah, the inflation. And yeah, we have normally used these funds for the UCPD programs, and those go up in cost independently of UCSB. Like UCPD has their own deal with the UC regions that affect those costs, so.
Thank you for your report, Jonathan. Jonathan told me earlier today that with the number of challenges and roadblocks we've had in the last month, he understands why the folks in the 1970s that were active just said, screw it, all we care about is cityhood. Because there's just challenge after challenge and barrier after barrier. But both Jonathan and the rest of our staff have done an excellent job, especially in this last month, where there's been so much. And Ed Shirley will say thank you for that. Okay, our next meeting of the Board of Directors will be on next Tuesday, February 8th. April 8th. Whew, I don't know what month I'm in. Any future agenda items?
I have an agenda item that I think I've mentioned in the past, perhaps, maybe, I don't know. But I thought about it when we had the incident in IV with the mini UCSB alerts that went out.
Oh, yeah.
It's just this kind of disparity that is being created in Isla Vista, where half the community hears something and half the community doesn't. And I don't know if that's a topic for another entity. If it's more of a staff conversation, or if it should be something to talk about at the board.
Maybe an Ivy safe topic.
That's a good idea. Okay, let's do that. Yeah, be awesome.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I've shared with you my feelings about that.
Yeah,
in the
that's
past.
terrible.
And I know others have been over the last, after there was the shooting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. And with that, we will adjourn. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Spencer, for